Before I even start, there are a lot of nuances to soloing up to Hazard 80, and I will be showing you one of the harder ways to do it. That being said, I do believe you can pick up some tips in general if you aren't planning to be psychotic enough to attempt any of this. So in this guide, we are going to be using Assault as our baseline, because the class really emphasizes the need for game mechanics and punishes any mistakes tenfold. Since if this class can do it, then other classes can do it much easier. Let's start with a generic template for the perks. You will need Royal Flush, simply because it makes nearly every gun viable along with the movement speed. Then there is a very obvious downside of having 60 HP, but it is probably the best ways to learn this game and opens up a lot of build variations in my opinion. The next perk I nearly always run is BL Headhunter gear. The reason for this is because it gives you everything you could possibly want for a solo run. Highlighting enemies through walls, dealing more damage, all while being immune to disorientation and gas. You can go without this perk if you are confident, but I find it to be extremely annoying to not run this perk. The last perk I will recommend is H-World Transmitter, simply because anchor corruptions exist. If they didn't exist, I wouldn't be using this. Other classes such as Specialist, Technician, and Visionary can actually forego using this perk. Although since we are playing Assault, we are forced to run this unless you want to pull your hair out. The rest of the perks are entirely up to you and what you think you will need. But for the footage in the background, I did use Boundary of Life since I rely on my melee to block hits quite often. Then there is AP rounds because I really didn't need the extra damage and it makes it easier to kill armored targets. Then the last perk I used was the Silenic Silencer for killing bosses. There are other better variations or just built in general like Tech Bomber, Kizuna, Volca, Pinpoint, Anarchist setups, and so on, but I think if you're able to play something similar to this, it will force you to improve your mechanics more. Also, this video would be like 2 hours long if I did every variation. The specializations on Assault I will be using in the video will be Plate Repair Kit, Swift Resupply, More the Merrier, and Shred Ammo in this run. This is just personal preference, so you can just run whatever you are comfortable with here, but this setup is specifically set to deal with mini bosses faster. For the starting loadout, I highly recommend using spare mags, any pistol, stagnate serum, and 2 enforcer nano grenades. You will see why we are running this later on in the video. In this section, we will go over the anchors, resupply stations, what to buy, and just some general melee tips. So starting off with the early game, rush the anchors as fast as you can. There are multiple reasons for this because you want to rush armor and a K2 blade as soon as possible. Each anchor gives you 20 credits, which is 100 credits total at the start of the game if you activate all the anchors. Make sure to try and path in a way you don't have to double back. There is a benefit of over anchoring if you do it fast enough, so you can speed up earlier hazards so you don't fall asleep. Just make sure to open the resupply stations along the way. These are very important later on. Once you have enough credits for your K2 blade and armor, feel free to bash every basic anomaly you can, and shoot when there are too many of them or if they are simply too dangerous for you to melee. When you have 375 credits, go buy a Vagrant Blade. It is one of the best melee weapons in the game since it is essentially your second health bar. Use the Vagrant Blade to roam around the map and as an extra safety net against damage. You will probably be spending more time with your melee out than with your gun out. A basic rule of thumb I usually follow is to only dash when you are above 100 stamina or if the situation absolutely requires you to dash. Just remember to try and maintain stamina above 100 by either not getting hit or hitting and killing weaker anomalies. A fun fact about the Vagrant Blade, you can outrange most anomalies, so make sure to abuse this. Once you get enough credits, go buy the gun you plan to use to kill the regular anomalies. In this video, I used the CBC 12mm since it is an extremely good gun with Royal Flush. Other weapons like the TAC 590, R300, and so on work fine as well. Just play to your build strengths. Then you continue on like this until you can buy your second gun that's meant to kill the boss. This is very build dependent, in this case it was the A-888. You should also buy Invo combat stims as well when you need them later. In this section, we will go over how to neutralize Night Demon. Now, once you have reached Hazard 20, Night Demon is your first mechanics check. You will have to manage the horde all while trying to kill the boss. What you need to do is bait out his teleport shortly after he spawns. Try to get into an advantageous position and use any buffs you may need to kill the boss. An advantageous position is when you are sure there are no enemies that can flank you from the sides or behind you. In this case, you can see me check the corridor and have my back against the wall so that I'm certain nothing can hit me from my flanks. Don't be too greedy when shooting Night Demon. You will get a sense of how much damage you can get away with from experience. One thing you always need to watch out for when fighting Night Demon are his long-range stomps. This occurs every 15 seconds. Do not, and I repeat, do not attempt to shoot him when you know the stomps are coming. Bait the stomps out and have your melee out just in case you get hit. Using the stagnate before you start shooting a boss is definitely the safer option here. You can skip phase 2 of Night Demon on solo if you do this correctly. You repeat this process until you are in phase 2. Once you are in phase 2, I highly recommend doing the anchors when Night Demon is not invulnerable, which means when his health is not gray. Night Demon now has 2 extra abilities to watch out for. The first one being the charge, which you should immediately take out your melee and cut any corners if you see him use it. The second one being the shout, which makes him invulnerable and cripples you if you are too close. Simply do all the anchors and avoid going near Night Demon if possible. It is essentially the same as phase 1 but with those 2 new gimmicks. In this section, we will summarize mid-hazard events. Hazards 20 through 30 starts introducing mid-hazard events. Going through all of them would make this video 2 hours longer, so I will briefly mention some of the extremely bad ones. Thorn Swarm and Blitz Swarms are probably the hardest thing in this game, and are nearly instant losses in higher hazards. Your best bet is to simply hope to not get them in the first place, but if you do get them, you are unfortunately a slave to your melee weapon. In this case, I got Flying Anomalies, which is more of a nuisance than anything. You can see what modifier it is by reading the chat. Do whatever that fits your playstyle here, and just try to path the anchors efficiently like you did in previous hazards. Hazard 20 to 30 is just a warm-up for what's to come. In this section, we will go over the various mini-bosses, special equipment, and what qualifies as a safe position. Once you reach Hazard 30, you will be introduced to at least one of the mini-bosses. Each of these mini-bosses has your own unique quirk. Let's start with the easiest one, which is Freya. You will know she spawned when you see the message, "Mechanical footsteps echo like the thunder in your ears." She can instantly kill you on a Royal Flush build, but she is extremely slow after a dash. Simply maintain a safe distance as she is an advanced Thrash Walker. The next mini-boss is Gambit, indicated by the text, "A distorted whistling chimes through your radio, unfettered by static." He is one of the easier bosses to handle in good conditions due to his low HP. Maintain a fairly long distance from Gambit and make use of the stagnate or corners to break line of sight. You really do not want to get hit by one of his shots. The third mini-boss is Nemesis, who spawns with the message of, "Sand sweeps into your wounds, seeking to tear you asunder." She is basically the faster version of Freya that can cripple and disorient you. No matter what you do, if you see her dash and you know you can't kill Nemesis fast enough, turn around, run, and cut any corners. If she is already close enough to shout, start dashing away. Being near her is a death sentence. Scorched King is our final mini-boss we will talk about. You are notified of him when a wave of heat washes over you as the winds grow thick with soot. He is extremely hard to get rid of efficiently. You essentially have to think 3 steps ahead of him to kill him without a lasbarker. First, you bait out his teleport where you think would be a good sightline to shoot him. Then, once he teleports, move to an advantageous position and either shoot Scorched King or bait out a stomp if he has not already done that. The reason why he is so hard to deal with is because of the high HP pool and the area of denial with the stomps. I highly recommend using las markers to chip him down easier if you believe that you cannot deal enough damage to the Scorched King in a timely manner. It is not a bad idea to start making use of the special equipment in the shop. I highly recommend placing a PMS stabilizer in a spot you visit frequently. Although you should probably use the other ones like the TAC restock and the ASC las marker sparingly, since you will need the credits later for Hazard 60. You should make use of safer positions when all the anchors are activated. This can be any place where there are open sight lines for you, or if the place has minimal lines of sight for anomalies to aggro onto you. It is important because it does not get easier from here. In this section, we will be going over the restabilization event and how to survive it. Hazard 40's objective is relatively simple. Survive for around 4 minutes. You can realistically not kill anything for 4 minutes, or use this time to farm credits. You can try defending a position for a little bit, but usually I find myself needing to roam around the map since there are too many enemies. If you feel that you are getting overwhelmed, activate any anchors to stop the anomalies from spawning for 10 seconds. Keep in mind you should wait around 10 seconds before activating another anchor since they do not add on to the previous 10 seconds. Either way, it is nice that you can have up to 50 seconds of not needing to worry about much. When the timer reaches around 2 minutes, mini bosses can start spawning. If you are confident in killing them, you should do it for the extra credits you can get. If not, it is perfectly fine to just run around and play it safe. It's actually not a bad idea to keep a las marker on hand just in case things get dicey. But in the background footage, I never really felt in danger since I used many safe spots around the map to get rid of any threats. In this section, we will introduce you to 2 new problems and what you should prioritize. Hazard 40 onwards introduces 2 new things. The first one is a new enemy, the Reapwalker. They have a distinct laugh that you need to listen for, and they will teleport to your last known location with a puff of black smoke. Simply be ready to turn around and shoot into the black smoke to get rid of them quickly as possible. If you lose track of them, it is not a bad idea to las marker the general location when a mini-boss spawns. In most solo runs, they are quite infrequent in early hazards, but become a nuisance when combined with the next mechanic, which are anchor corruptions. They have a very low chance of happening in solo runs in general, but sometimes you can get very unlucky if both of these things happen more than usual. To deal with these anchor corruptions, you should know a couple of things. First, before you try to uncorrupt any anchors, you should throw at least 1 Enforcer Nano Grenade on them. I usually throw 2 of them because it covers more area, because unfortunately the damage does not stack. Once you are on an anchor, keep a watchful eye for any enemies that can force you off the anchor. You have to judge whether or not it is worth it to keep uncorrupting, or eliminate the anomaly yourself and reset the progress. Keep in mind you are actually able to move around during the uncorrupting process. A rule of thumb for getting off the anchor is if there are too many high HP anomalies that your nano grenades cannot deal with. If you can't get the anchor the first time, loop around the map, buy more Enforcer Nano Grenades, and even las marker to try again. Sometimes you will see me pop a stagnate a tad bit before I get to the corrupted anchor so that the anomalies can't see me behind the anchor and run there. Anomalies cannot see you through unactivated anchors, so do with that information what you will. The name of the game for Hazard 40 through 59 is to get all the anchors that you can possibly get before they are corrupted. When a mini-boss spawns, try to kill them as fast as possible since they ignore line of sight, making it nearly impossible to uncorrupt anchors. It is probably not a good idea to over-anchor past 2 minutes in higher hazards since all it does is make it harder for you. Since each hazard creates a chance for more anchor corruptions, which already takes 20 seconds minimum to deal with, along with mini-bosses making it impossible to uncorrupt them. So your priority should be activating any anchors if your timer is below 2 minutes, killing any mini-bosses if they are still alive, then uncorrupt any anchors as soon as possible. In this section, we will be going over the anchor failure event, a method to uncorrupt anchors, and a small tip to shop quicker. Hazard 60 is the great barrier for most players in this game. The reason is because it is very unfair for many builds due to how much luck plays a role in some of these anchor positions. If you are solo, you only need to get 3 anchors. You will need to use last markers every time you need to make an attempt on uncorrupting an anchor unless you have things like Anarchists, which in this demonstration we are not using. So you may have noticed that some anchors are harder than other anchors to uncorrupt. We usually call these outside anchors. Outside anchors are extremely unfair due to anomalies having an extremely high chance to spawn all around you. I typically avoid uncorrupting outside anchors unless absolutely needed, but we can use a similar method for all of the anchors. The method we are talking about requires you to kite anomalies around the map for about 5 to 10 seconds away from the anchor you want to corrupt. Once you have most of the anomalies behind you, throw both of your enforcement nano grenades, position yourself around the anchor, use the last marker in the direction of most anomalies, swap to your melee weapon, and pop the stagnate, then start uncorrupting the anchor. Then circle around the anchor to dodge anything that could force you off the anchor. This may take a couple of attempts, so you should probably learn how to shop efficiently. What I typically do is, when I need to go quickly, is open up the shop, click on refill all, then click on special to buy the las marker, and then move far enough away from the shop so I don't have to manually close it with my mouse. This may take a couple of tries, but you should be able to get close to uncorrupting an anchor usually. You repeat this until all anchors you need are uncorrupted. In this section, we implore you to keep in mind of the mini-boss spawn timings and the need for credits. For hazards 60 through 79, it is essentially the same as hazards 40 through 59. It's just now the spawn and corruption rates are boosted. This is where the game gets harder to manage on most builds. The best tip I can give you here is to really keep track of the boss timers. Each mini-boss takes around 2 minutes to spawn, so do whatever it takes to kill a mini-boss in under a minute and a half to give you time to at least uncorrupt other anchors. I highly recommend not trying to over-anchor unless you are confident, since it could make some scenarios impossible. This is also the point where you should really optimize your credit usage. I recommend having over 5,000 credits by this point, and if you don't, try not to use the refill all button on the shop, or just use the tag resupply stations around the map. Since we will need credits for las markers to deal with bosses, or for hazard 80 and later if you plan to go that far. In this section, we will inform you how to eliminate the BSD operatives. So you made it to hazard 80. My best advice is to not let any of the BSD operatives near you. You can las marker all of them to death, but that's not the best idea since you will need the credits later on if you plan to reach hazard 100. Also, activating anchors do damage to the bosses but to minimal effect on solo. But it is an option if you have nerves or other anomalies are overwhelming you. It is actually important to know what all the BSD operatives can do so you can play around them. Starting with Benkei, who is like the mini version of Night Demon. Do not attempt to las marker right as he spawns, since he will almost always teleport to your location. After Benkei teleports, what you need to look out for are the very long range stomps. Do not attempt to shoot him when you hear the roar, since you will most likely get hit by the stomp shockwaves. Always have your melee out when he roars and attempt to damage him after. Take your time when dealing with Benkei. The next BSD operative is Jinke. She is typically made to disorient an unorganized team by teleporting every time she hits a player for 25% of their max HP. In this case, you are alone, so she actually isn't a threat to you. Despite Jinke's slow speed, I highly recommend using a las marker to kill her right away after she teleports. The reason for this is because what normally happens is the horde is all around her, actually protecting her, making it extremely difficult to land good shots or have any good sightlines. The third BSD operative you encounter is Liang Yu. She is meant to stall for time. She cannot teleport, so you will either have to wait for her or meet her halfway. Whatever you do, make sure to turn corners when she dashes. A single basic attack from Liang Yu will instantly kill you on Royal Flush. Use as many las markers if you are not comfortable. Better spend the credits alive than leave it to rot while you are dead. The fourth BSD operative to appear is Gensai. He can and will catch you off guard with his speed if you're not careful. Think of him as a faster nemesis. Whatever you do, do not let him within 3 dashing distances of you. He can and will delete you faster than you can react. Gensai is tricky to land a good las marker on, so I actually don't recommend trying it. The fifth BSD operative is Shu Wen, who takes notes out of the Immortal Snail playbook by being extremely slow but hitting very hard. He can hit you for 95% of your HP and leave you with the anti-heal debuff for 10 seconds. Nothing really much to say other than don't let this snail hit you. The final and arguably the most dangerous BSD operative, Kojiro. Do not take his mobility lightly, he can dash long distances every 5 seconds. If you are in his path, count yourself dead. Try not to stay within tight corridors as he can bounce and kill you due to how Roblox physics works. I highly recommend damaging Kojiro after he dashes for about 1 to 2 seconds, and then create as much distance as you can after you did your damage. That being said, I highly recommend using a las marker on him. After all of that, you should have hopefully sold Hazard 80. If you have made it this far, I appreciate you. Feel free to leave any more tips and stuff that I missed, because I know I missed a lot. Alright, see ya, probably.